Hello, and welcome again to another episode of Battle Ready.
Ready.
Where today, I thought we'd talk some maps. We'd talk about some maps.
The maps in the books, to be precise.
Yes, so a lot of the battle tomes come with maps. Very cool. But I think the main thing that separates AoS from Warhammer Fantasy Battles is in AoS, you have 8 realms, and each realm is how big?
Look, I think it was 3 times the size of Earth.
Yeah, ginormo. They're all ginormo, right? And when you get a map in a book, it's really of a very small piece of the realm, right? Like you get a map of Akshi. Really, what you're getting a map of is the Great Parch.
Yeah,
right?
Usually it's that.
And the Great Parch is, what percentage do you think of Akshi?
3?
Yeah, probably less than 1, I would say. It's a very small part. And that is sort of a contrast to how it used to be done in fantasy battles. You know how it used to be done?
Oh.
The whole world was one big map. They had mapped out, I shouldn't say the whole world, but basically the whole world.
Everything important.
And so everything was like, here's where the Empire is. Here's where Troll Country is. Here's where, all of it was mapped out.
Those 2 words just flew right over my head.
Yeah, don't worry about too much about it. But I think the main difference is in one, you have a complete world where on the edges of the map, maybe there's something, but it's not important. And then you have something now where
it's a snippet.
The map is basically limitless, and you get a little slice. You get a little slice. So, what do you think? Which way is better, and why?
I think that snippets are better.
The current way. You think the current way is better?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because it is more detailed. That's my big thing is.
It's more detailed?
Yeah, you get a closer look at in-depth areas.
Sure. But you could get, like, let's say that there was a map where that had all or most of the realm of fire, and then it showed all kinds of, like, here's where the ogres are, here's where the Seraphon are, and then they could zoom in on the Great Parch, right? So you would still have a full map, and then you would have your detail section too.
Yeah. I just think the full map is a little too broad for my taste.
Yeah?
It's like, well, now we know the entire world, and so I have to create my own story using what we know.
See, I think that's the best benefit for having the AoS style.
Is the little snippets.
This little snippet of what the Great Parch can be pretty well set in stone, but then if you want to create your own city, or your own Fireslayer Lodge, or your own whatever, you can. Because you just say, oh, mine's actually just a couple miles away from the Great Parch. Or mine's super far from the Great Parch.
It's on the edge of the realm of fire.
And we've traveled for years to get to this battle, right? Whatever. Yeah. You could do all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I think it does give you tons and tons of room for your own creativity. I think, though, I'm on the other side of it.
Really?
I think having a fuller map would be my preference. And I'll tell you why. I feel like with the AoS maps as they are now, there's like this one cool part called the Great Parch that's sort of neat. And it's pretty big. I mean, it's not small, the Great Parch. There's lots going on in there, right?
But like if this whole table is actually the Great Parch is like right here.
Yeah, the Great Parch would be like that. Right? I mean, it would be pretty small. So I like that part, but then there's so much left over. So much where it's just like, what's going on out there? What's happening? Chaos stuff, probably. I don't know, chaos.
Realm of chaos.
And I feel like it loses a little bit of the imagination of making stuff up, because I would rather invest my stuff into existing lore, where I'm like, oh, this is actually a subgroup that come from the Hollowed Knights, and they were over here and they did a couple. But if I'm going to be, in some far off land that I just have to make up myself, I feel like, it's I come from a far off land, but I also happen to be from Hammerhall or have a Hammerhall guy in it. It's it's a little bit weird. So I think it's not as creatively freeing as it might be, in the sense that I want to put my stuff into the main storyline, right? I want to be dealing with the movers and shakers, not some also rans that nobody's ever heard of before, right? And I sort of dislike, and I don't strongly dislike, but I sort of dislike that chaos is just everywhere.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's lazy. And the reason is, if chaos is everywhere, then it makes chaos sound complacent. Like, we own 99% of the land. Who cares if order is like fighting on one? In fact, we go to fight order like for fun sometimes. Crazy weekend. I turned 21. I'm going to go fight order, right? Whereas I think it would be cooler if if they were contesting territory back and forth, or if they were roughly equivalent, right? Because if everything is chaos, I feel like, okay, either chaos isn't trying that hard, or chaos is so ridiculous and dumb that they can't kill this little tiny piece of order or death or ogres. It's like kind of makes chaos sound like bumbling fools, and I don't want chaos to be bumbling fools. I want them to be sinister and dark and encroaching. And one of the things I really liked in 3rd edition was when Marathi takes over Anvilgard, right? And it becomes a new city under Marathi, and it's like, oh, there's moving and shaking happening. And you could totally do that with order and chaos. But I think it's less impressive when chaos, who controls 99% of Akshi, takes over a city. You're like, oh, okay. I guess you took over a city. You already had all the other cities. So good for you, I guess. I don't know. I don't know that I like the fact that chaos is just like everywhere outside the city, outside the little tiny places that we know about.
I take the complete opposite stance.
All right, give me your thoughts on it.
I like that chaos is everywhere because I think it highlights just how tooth and nail the defenders are fighting to hold on to these tiny little islands. I think it would sound way worse if chaos was getting pushed back, because for centuries they basically owned the mortal realms.
Mm-hmm.
And Sigmar is just now having to murder and ruin people's afterlives and throw them into the eternal gauntlet of war to take one spot of land and constantly hold it and throw people's lives into the meat grinder to hold that spot of land against the endless tides of chaos.
See, that's the thing. But if there are endless tides, how come they haven't won already?
Because they're fighting tooth and nail.
Nah, I understand what you're saying. It just seems like, I don't care how powerful Stormcast are. I get that they're powerful.
Sigmarines.
The Sigmarines. But there's only so many of them. And if chaos is functionally limitless, I don't know. I just feel like chaos could take them over anytime they wanted.
The reason, my counterclaim to that is the only reason they haven't already is because there's infighting. One of the chaos gods is completely missing. And with the radicalism now, even the other forces of chaos are like, oh, rats.
Yeah, certainly there's some infighting going on. And maybe what they could do is flesh that out a little bit so it made a little bit more sense. But I mean, come on. Come on. I mean, I don't know. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense I mean, it makes sense. I understand it. But I just sort of feel like if they really were, 1,000 chaos people for every one City of Sigmar resident, then why aren't they all dead? It's 1,001. They should just all be dead. So I don't like that. But what I would like, I think it would be cooler if order and chaos were locked in this battle, and they were roughly, or maybe order would be slightly weaker, but they were more comparable. Because then you could say, all right, chaos has all these things to the west and south, and order has just eked out a little bit of territory on the north. But
and what about destruction and death?
Yeah, they're a little bit on the west, I guess.
You just said they had the west.
Oh, then the east, whatever. The last direction.
Over there.
But then it would be like, okay, now we're stepping up a fight that we're outnumbered and is difficult for us, but isn't like crazy impossible. Because look at this. Archaon is supposed to be this major general just totally doing all this cool stuff, but he's just been sulking in the 8 points for 10 years now. 10 years of gameplay, which actually is a couple centuries in the game. And it's like, well, what are you doing, Archaon? I thought you were supposed to be this great general. You can't take over this little tiny piece of land that has a 1,000th of the troops that you have.
No, what it is that's insignificant to him. He wants to find the biggest fights to prove that Chaos is on top and demoralize these warriors of
I think you're
Sigmar.
thinking Orc logic. That's not how Chaos works. That's not how the slaves. That's not how Archaon.
I haven't read their book.
So yeah, that's what my thought. And so I would like to see a map. You could still say, okay, the mortal realms are super ridiculous big, right? And this map, and as you get
24 Earths,
as you get closer to the edges, becomes more magical and weird, right? So maybe you only show 50, 60, 75%, and you say in the middle, right? And you just say, hey, around this, there's weird stuff that we don't know. Like if we make a new army, it could come from the weird outside stuff. So you're giving Games Workshop is giving themselves room, right? But I would be able to look at actually and say, oh yeah, up in the north, that's where it's totally chaos contested. But down in the south, that's where the ogres have clawed themselves a little piece of territory. But they're fighting with the orcs just to their north. And the orcs are simultaneously fighting with the fire slayers that are right north of them.
Glorious.
And it's like, yeah, you sort of get to see it. And then you could, if you want to create a cool lodge or whatever, there's plenty of room to sort of slice in there, but you still get a grander picture. And it doesn't look like Chaos is being super lazy all the time.
See, I get that, but what I think is if Chaos had lost like half of the mortal realms, it'd make them look way weaker than they do now.
See, I don't think that's the case, because you could say, all right, they had everything right during the Age of Chaos.
Yeah, everything.
But then the Age of Sigmar comes, and they're so blown back by the Stormcast that huge swaths of land are taken, and now before Chaos could like mount a counteroffensive and start winning again. And like I said, I could see Chaos having some of the upper hand. I would like it if Order was under threat, right? Not like an easy stalemate in a demilitarized zone. No, that's not cool. Order should feel like they're under threat all the time, right? But Chaos should feel like they've got to work for it. And right now, it sort of feels like they're just being lazy. Like they could have it if they wanted, but they don't. They're just they've got pus. Nurgle's just got some pimples to pop, and Tzeentch's got schemes within schemes. It's like nobody's actually. If anybody wanted to, they could just do it.
I think that's one of the big things is what we see and what Games Workshop writes about is only the groundbreaking stuff. In reality, thousands of cities fall a day to Chaos.
Yeah, maybe, but then how are there more cities? I mean, thousands fall a day.
Dawnbringer Crusades.
Yeah, but how are
you
there
send
that
out
many
thousands a day?
I don't know. So I get what you're saying. I'm skeptical that the numbers work out. That's all I'll say. I just don't think.
I'm sure I'm over-exaggerating with thousands, but like at least a couple dozen cities fall a day.
Well, we read about Dawnbringer's Crusades and how there's all this thing, and they go out there and they're all getting killed, and bad things are happening to them, and then they barely set up a thing, and then lots of those ones just die the first night when orcs or Nighthaunt or whatever come and kill them. And so it's like it's this huge endeavor costing thousands of lives to set up a new city, and then if you're depleting all your resources doing that, and then those are getting killed by Chaos daily, it's like, well, how do you have anything left? It seems like Chaos should just like walk in there and smack you.
Well, one of the things is those Dawnbringer Crusades happen because of overpopulation. So you get rid of that surplus of people to go try and found a new city.
Well, if people can be overpopulated, that means they're not getting killed off very much. So Chaos isn't doing its job.
But the reason that there wasn't as much crazy conflict in third like there was in second is because it was all about fighting over the ley line nexus points.
Yeah, I think maybe
Chaos was more focused on getting those nexus points to corrupt the mortal realms themselves instead of just taking out some puny little city.
Yeah, I think maybe what I'm learning for myself is that I need more lore from Games Workshop. I think there are ways to answer a lot of these questions and problems that I have with the lore or the setting. Not really the lore, the setting as it is right now. But Games Workshop, they just don't do enough lore stuff, right? They need a scribes report, right? They need to do events. Now they are doing, what is it, Scourge of Gibran? What is the new GHB thing called?
I don't know these things.
Oh yeah, so they've
You
announced
just tell me what they
there's
are.
an event coming with the new GHB. It's called something of Gibran, Scourge of Gibran,
Do we get to do
Scour of
things?
Gibran. No, at least as of today, as we're recording this, there's not a lot of detail.
No.
So I don't know anything more than that. But it does sound like there will be at least some narrative component, which is great. I would love to see them advance, even if only slowly, but advance the storyline on a yearly basis with the GHB or opposite it or whatever. I think that would be so good, because that would help explain a lot of things for me, and also that would allow them to fill in a lot of that area that's just completely unused right now. I feel like there's so much potential, and it was used initially to say, we're making a new game, we haven't thought up all the lore and the setting yet, so they're just super big and we can do anything we want. And it's like, okay, well, the game's been going for 10 years. It's time to fill that in. Let's fill it in a little bit. You could leave some stuff around the edges for sure. You could say that some stuff, as you get close to the perimeter, inimical. It can't be. There's no cartography, or if you do map it out, it'll change within a couple of years.
They do say that those edges are so suffused with chaos that no one wants to go there.
Yeah. So you could have like the middle section.
The middle is stable?
Yes. And you can even have like, all right, so maybe only the middle 50% is stable. And so then you're like, here's the middle 50 that's pretty stable. Here's the next 25% around that. That's like risky.
Like chaos still has serious influence there.
Yeah. And then beyond that,
you're not going there. You're going to die.
Yeah. But if we want to introduce silent people or chaos dwarves or, whatever, we can say, oh yeah, that's where they were. And now something has happened. There's been a life quake or necro quake or something, and they're awakened. Yeah, you can make up whatever you want. But I think fleshing out those territories a little bit more, even if you're just making broad strokes, the same way they do in Great Parch, where it's like, oh, here's a Fire Slayer hold. Here's a this sort of thing. Here's where Hammerhall is. Here's where Harkuran is, or whatever, right?
Anvil Guard.
Anvil Guard. You could do that with everything and be like, hey, this blob is where we know there was a Deepkin enclave, but they've mysteriously disappeared. Or are they down there still? You could do all kinds of stuff and just throw out little hooks here and there. And then that way, if I wanted to make my own stuff, I have lots of places to insert it, right? And if you have lots of little things in there, you could sort of like raise one up and tell a couple stories, and then have it be destroyed at the end of an edition or something, right? You give yourself these opportunities, but when everything is Hammerhall, it's like, what city we are? Oh yeah, we're all in Hammerhall. When everything is Hammerhall, it sort of makes it harder, I think.
I'm guessing they're gonna leave Hammerhall soon because of the whole Twin-Tailed Crusade fiasco.
Well, Hammerhall is supposed to be like the big place. That's the thing that's giving you the Aqua Garanis. And that's feeding all the apparently thousands of cities that die each day. So I don't know, if they lose that, that's
basically it for Order.
That would be it, yeah. Or at least for the Stormcasted cities. All right, well, those are my thoughts on the setting. I would like to see it fleshed out more. I would like to see more.
I'm of the completely different opinion. I think that the only reason Chaos is not winning is because Order's fighting too good.
Yeah, I don't want Order to be fighting too good. I want it to be like a desperate struggle.
It is.
Not like Order's just like, Chaos they're pretty lazy. They come by every once in a while. They go chop on. It's fun.
Another reason that they're not winning is because they're busy with both death and destruction. When they're getting ready for a fight, suddenly a bunch of orcs is just going to run right through their camp and go have fun.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a little Deus Ex for me. But let us know in the comments below your thoughts. Do you like the setting as it is? Are you in the Drake camp?
That's where we have fun with orcs.
There are orcs in the Drake camp.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. Or are you more on my side where we would like to see that a little bit more, maybe not 100%, but a little bit more fleshed out with more, at least story hooks of things that are going on, even if those things don't become major plot points. All right, let us know. This has been another episode of Battle Ready.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for watching.